Recording. So hello everyone in the future watching the recording, and hello everyone who's live. So very nice that you could join. It's a new training. It's always a bit of looking around how we are going to deploy and develop and deliver this. I got trained myself, let's say a few weeks ago on, or a few months already, on with the DevNet Express session. And that really just started me thinking of it was instantly booked. It's an initial course, an introduction course on Python and on APIs, and it's so incredibly important that you get the basics. I think every one of us and our partners also understand this, and that's why it's always fully booked. The courses from Cisco, so it's very difficult to get a seat there. Now, because it's more and more things are being done virtually, it's a bit easier to get a seat. But anyway, it's still quite difficult. But I duplicated, let's say, most of the exercises and made them a bit nicer looking, into my opinion. Because what DevNet is using, of course, they're using their own network as well. So you can take over a station where you do some. Where you can start to learn APIs, creating APIs, and do some Python exercises. It's incredibly slow, into my opinion, because it doesn't give you a lot of resources to play with, and you're not completely understanding everything behind it. So I chose in this training to really start from the bottom. So you have to install your own dependencies. So I get to an insight of what those are. So you have to install those dependencies. You'll create your own virtual environment, and then you start to create some nice-looking scripts. So it's interactive. So if you have any questions, for me, it's also still a learning curve. But it's always nice to have these discussions with all of you. Let me quickly check on. Marius, are you also in the call? Because I didn't check that.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Marius. Hello. Yes, I can hear you. Great. Yeah, I know that you're also going to deliver a few of these trainings in the near future. So it would also be very nice to understand how that went. So what your feedback is on those, because it's also the first time that you will be delivering those, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's also nice to know what tools you're using and so on, so we can all learn from each other. That's always very nice. API training. So why is this now all of a sudden becoming very hot? This is something that I nicked from someone that I actually liked, and this is really representing the entire API hype. This is a quote from Alice in Wonderland. This rabbit is telling how we have to run. If we run as fast as we can just stay in place, and that's also the feeling that we now as engineers get right now. So we're doing a lot of work, a lot of effort, but we do not just go forward. We don't improve. And if we want to go forward, we need to run twice as fast as we can. And thankful to it's now because of automation supported by APIs, we can now reach that state. We can now just increase the way we go forward, and that is also how this new world of APIs is helping us as engineers. It's not just creating a new engineering kind of people. It's just us as network engineers that are giving more tools that we can now really do quite a lot more than we could have done in the past. We still need the knowledge from networking engineers. We still need our own knowledge that we developed throughout the years. But now we can make all of these things automated at a certain process. So that is where APIs are supporting the change in here. We're going through, so these slides are also explained. So everything that we're going to see in the slides are also explained in the lab guide. So don't be afraid. If you see things here that look really strange, you will be getting the time to train yourself on on those actions. Now, APIs, if I have to explain this with my own words, I would actually say it is a piece of software that it's an interface that allows two pieces of software to talk to each other, rather than placing a human in between, which takes a lot of time, delay, and is prone to errors. So we just take the human aspect away and just let two machines talk to each other. And with that, we of course we leverage the specific interface, an application programming interface that is allowing that to be done. So this is how we used to interact, or still do that. So this is the Meraki network. It can be anything else. And of course, this Meraki network, those devices, they are representing themselves in a user interface. So this is a dashboard that is, for us, easy to interact with the network and making changes. So that is how the normal interaction is working currently. What we're actually trying to do, so let's just say that we have a specific repetitive task, that we go through all of the switches in our network, and for security reasons, we're going to close all the ports that have not been used in the last 30 days. This is an incredibly slow task for an engineer to do, incredibly boring. And also, it's taking us away from doing real innovative tasks. And getting also, our job will become all of a sudden like a parrot job, is how we say that here in Belgium. So it's not something that is really repetitive, so not something we have been trained to do. So what if we could just remove that repetitive us, and we just place a machine there? That machine is going and run through all of the switches, looking in how long this port has been unused, and if it was more than 30 days, it's automatically been shut down. There are tons of examples in how automation can be used in this way. Now, this is just one of the examples to get you already on a certain level of where APIs are very useful. So yeah, we just now use a specific computer or a function somewhere that runs on a server who is going to do those tasks for us. Now, this is just, well, exactly what I've just explained to you previously. So this is a certain set of automation that can be done for us. It's not only the automation that is very helpful for us. So it's actually these three aspects that are very, well, that we actually require to do that kind of automation. What do we need? We need devices that are capable of being programmed. So for devices that are open in doing actually interaction using APIs. Devices, those devices, actually more and more devices within Cisco are supporting this. And it's not just Meraki, what I just highlighted. It is also in the collaboration space, data center, security products. There are tons of products that are capable of interaction with APIs. And if we look down in the small business segments, now even the Cisco business product lines, so the previous SG product lines, the new Cisco business product lines, when they are connected to a Cisco business dashboard, even that dashboard supports APIs. So it's no longer in the high ends, it's also coming down in the low, in the small business area, where we also see that can be a benefit, as beneficial even for smaller businesses. We need easy to use APIs, so we need to be able to use it, and they need to be easy to use, obviously. We need also documentation where we can leverage these APIs. The beauty about it is that a lot of APIs can be tested out through a website already. So if you go through the documentation of Cisco APIs, you can actually already go and test out these APIs right in the browser. I'll show you that one in a few moments. And and then of course we can get that automation that I've been talking about so far. Is it only automation that you can achieve? No, it's just one of the things you can achieve. So these are just 3 examples of what you can achieve. So automation is just a little bit of it. Obviously, with these APIs, we can get a lot of visibility, and we can do automatic reporting. So if things are going wrong, or if you just want to have a monthly report on how intensely our network is being used, we can now do that with APIs. And eventually, and this is really the ultimate goal, we can innovate our network. We can build our own applications. So not just running on just merely on these APIs and just reading and automating things. No, we can just build on top of solutions on top. And a few nice examples are the solutions that have been built by VApp, for example. VApp is using the APIs from the Meraki Visions, the MV, so the cameras. From the moment there is movement on a specific frame, that image is going to be sent through the cloud. Some analytics are being done on that frame, and then all of a sudden you get a dashboard of your shop with, on one side, the gender divisions, because by looking at a specific person, there is a lot of processing that can be used to identify whether this is male, female, what are the facial expressions this person has, if this person is happy or not. And we can instantly see in all our shops now how happy these people are. And we can dive into a certain shop of interest to see why these people are not really showing a lot of happiness. Maybe there's a wrong way of us interacting with them. Maybe they don't get the products they actually want to. So this is the innovative bit that you can actually start to develop on top of your solution. So it doesn't stop with automation. There's much more to be done. And that's what I highlighted initially. I'm just seeing really the tip of it. And there is so much underneath. And very slowly, I get to discover all of these additional features and benefits. And this is actually very fun to play with and incredibly addictive, I have to warn you. Now, why is this now happening? Because APIs, they existed already since, I don't know how long, but a long time already. Now they now have been matured. It's easier now for us to use them. It's now just with just an API. You have to. We will get to those slides eventually. But an API is like making a call to a website. So we're going to a certain website, and then we retrieve the web page as a return. So that's why within the API, you also see always this URL section where you go to a specific website. And then with that, we will send some variables that you can probably say, I need to have that switch, that port. And as a response, you get that nicely structured data with all these ports, in what state they are, what VLAN is assigned to it, so that we can actually get that information, change it, and send it back. So now the complexity of APIs has been incredibly reduced. So it's easier to use them, and I will show that, of course, also during a demonstration. So this is an example of what it looks like, what you get back. So it's nicely structured, as you can see. So you can see that this is, for example, this is a dictionary. So in this dictionary, you get certain values, and they are linked to a key. So this key, for example, the key has a name. So the key is name, and the value of that name is gigabit Ethernet 2. So there you can see that you have nicely structured data that you can easily retrieve and change. And yeah, then thirdly, of course, after retrieving it, then we can read it, change it, and eventually send that back. Now, how do we do all of this? Because the API is only the number one you see here in this slide. The other two buttons are actually reading the data and manipulating the data. To do that, we need a language to do that, a programming language. And you can choose whatever language you want to, but what I can recommend is diving into Python. That's also why that's the topic of part of the topics within this training, is diving into how Python really works. If you already have had done some programming in the past, this will definitely help you. Any type of programming will definitely help you. But if you haven't, Python is definitely a good one to start with, because this one is, if you can read the English language, it is kind of structured in the same way. So it's easy for humans to read, and it's also made easy for machines to read. So in this way, we have a nice way of us as humans creating code for machines. Now, why is it all of a sudden now? I have to mention that as well. It's also the complexity is also greatly reduced. So we're going to use libraries. We're going to install libraries so that we don't have to write all of the codes ourselves. So the example you see here in front of you is the requests library. And this one is embedding all pieces of code that we need to go to a website, to download the response from a website. Because if you don't have that, you have to completely code all these lines yourself to actually get a machine, go out there and go to a website, and how it does interact with the websites. Now, because we just import the entire library, which is just one line of code, import the library, then we create one line of text or one line of code, which is said, get that website, so get the response from that website. And that's it, just one line of code. Actually, have 2 lines of code, and we have made an API request. This used to be done a few hundreds of lines, so these things actually are decreased intensively. Okay, this I highlighted initially. You have to understand that with learning coding, you will not change your business role, or you will not change the way how you do your tasks day by day. They will help you. They will be you will actually become a more capable engineer. So this is very helpful for all of us to understand how this is working. Yeah. So why Python? If you're really interested in why Cisco is really pushing Python, these are just a few highlights that I retrieved from the DevOps team. Why they have positioned Python as a #1 scripting. They actually like it. It's also easy, pretty easy to code, and they created just tons of goodies already with Python. So that's not the reason, but they actually already have that laying around somewhere. So they just say, okay, we need to get through this code now, because otherwise we have to throw it all away. But that is this is really something that Cisco is pushing forward, and I'm happy that they chose this coding language. Now, if you're going to work on a project, with an entire team, you need to have a central, you need to have a platform where you're going to work together on a piece of code. Because usually it's not just one line of code. Usually you're going to create an entire application with tons of code. And you're going to be responsible for a certain definition of coding and someone else another definition. And then somehow it needs to be brought together. So you need to be working on a shared file. So, and if you're going to change these files with communities, we need a certain version control. And this is where Git and GitHub are coming into play. We are not going to use GitHub in this lab, but GitHub is a nice database which is filled up of pieces of code already created. So you do not have to invent the wheel all over again. If you want to create something like, let's say, a chatbot, there's a good chance that there are a few dozens of examples already on GitHub. Hub is a repository where you can find these pieces of code, where you can download them. And if you want to collaborate with the creator, you can actually use a tool which is called Git to download that version, check it out, change the data, and of course, update the piece of code on GitHub themselves. I haven't been sending in code on GitHub yet. I'm only so far retrieving information that made me help understanding all these pieces of code and building out my own applications. I'll just quickly jump on. This was an Alan call we just had. Now, to give you an idea, GitHub is really just github.com, and in here you will find tons of different examples, pieces of codes. Even a few of our colleagues already interacted with GitHub and also uploaded some content in there. So it can all be retrieved in there. Now, this website is only giving you the option to download it. If you're going to interact with these with the same content of code, you need an application which is called Git, like I've showed you previously. This is an interface, a command line interface, where you can start downloading certain pieces of code, then check them out, render them or changing it in the way you want to, and upload it again. So, but this is of course a tool the Git is a tool that can help you to connect to that database for interaction. This is just a little piece of the presentation itself, but if you're really interested in joining this community, this is the direction you have to go to. So there's a little bit of a workflow, really quickly going over that. It's not so relevant for today, but if you're going to work on specific code, check it out, edit it, and then commit it back again into the community. Some terminology of Git. I don't going to bore you with these details, and these are just comments if you really want to interact, but that's going to be for the next phase after you can, if you actually created your first scripts. Let's dive into Python. So why do we need Python? Let me now show you a little bit what you will be achieving by following this course. So by the end of the course, I'll give you a little of a sneak preview what you will be doing eventually. So I'm going to use, you can use a lot of different coding applications. Preferably you use your own that you installed on your own PC. I'm using Visual Studio Code usually. Now this is a web page that is was also emulating a coding environment, so it's quite easy to use this web page platform to show some demonstrations, certainly on trainings like this. So we have a Python environment. Now we can start to code. Let's say I want to print out a certain piece of information. I want to print out hello. Now this is not so exciting. It just prints out hello. We will be doing some exercises in the lab, how we can manipulate certain variables. So variables can be a number, can be a piece of text, can be a Boolean, so 1 and zeros, can be different types of information. But you do not have to initiate these variables. They will be automatically created from the moment you assign a certain context to it. So if I'm going to send hi, and I'm using a variable now to send this piece of information over to the console, then I get to send hi. So what we will achieve, so you will start to do some exercises, and then eventually you will bring in APIs. Now, as I have mentioned, an API is like a web call. So you do a call to a web page, kind of. So I'm going to bring in one example API. So there are really tons of them, I can assure you. So this one is actually a fun one. Let's go to the API content. So these are dad jokes. So by calling these APIs, so I want to get that information. So you can also put information like changing a switch port, but getting the information using an API, you read the information like switch ports, etc. We will be reading a random dad joke. So by getting that information, and the code itself to do that looks like this. So first, as I've mentioned, you have to import the library to make web calls, to make a REST API call. So you really to read out the response from websites. The library name that is combining all of these tools and variables is requests. So we have to import the entire library requests, and then we're going to read the response from making a request to, well, it's a get that we're going to make to a certain website. This is then the website where we're going to make this call to, and then we get this responsing. The result is actually the response in text, and then I can do a print from my result. And if I run this now, I should be able to see the result coming in. This is what I can also see if I just put that in the web browser right here. Now this, what I'm doing is now I made my first API call, right? So that this is what I get back, structured data. I have an attachment. This is the entire attachment up to here. And then I have a response type and a username. Now the attachment is containing the information that I want. In the lab, you will be reading this attachment and using, this is actually, we call this structured data, using the JSON library, we will be able to manipulate that data. So you'll see that this is a JSON request. You can see that on the double quotes. If we're going to use the JSON library, we can now start to change that into data we can actually start to manipulate. If we do that now, instead of double quotes, we get single quotes. And this is now structured data. In the lab, and I'll go through the slides of that, so bear with me. This is just what you will be capable of doing by the end of the course. In the lab, we will be seeing that this is a dictionary. A dictionary has a key and a value. So the key is attachment, that's the name of the key. The value is the entire attachment. So if we want to retrieve the value from the key attachments, I have to tell this machine that I want only the value of the attachment, not the entire reply. I'm not really interested in that. So attachments, this is what I then get back. Now, what do I get back? You'll also learn in the lab. When it starts with this kind of bracket, where it just opens up, this is a list. This is really a list with different kinds of content. Now I need to have my first list. So this is list number 1, which is list 0. So this is really like machine talk. The first list in the list is list number 0. I want to have that first list, and then I get back in that list and I see this kind of bracket opening up again. This is the sign of now we have a dictionary again with values, with keys and values. I am interested in the key text because that value has that joke. So I'm going to open that up as being text. And if I now print that result, then I only get that value back, which is behind text. Now I can start manipulating that. So I have results. Now I can manipulate this result into, I want to have everything in upper wording. So everything is in upper upper letters, not sure what the proper English word for that is, but everything is upper. Now you can start completely manipulate to reply and eventually send that back if you want. Now this is an API that I just built with Python coding. To give you an idea where you can go to with that content, let's go to some really useful APIs that we have in. For example, the Meraki has a lot of very useful APIs. Someone has a question?
Yes. Hey, Thomas. First of all, thank you for amazing explanation. Now I really understand the functions of list and all these variables. So I saw like you were calling some functions like upper. These are embedded to Python, or maybe you get it as a result of the import of JSON.
No,
yeah,
these are results. These are already predefined within Python, so you don't have to import anything.
Okay.
Manipulating the data, that is all part of the Python language. And, if you're using a good interpreter, a good coding platform like Visual Studio Code, for example, or this one is also actually a very good one. So if I'm creating, this is variable text. So this is the name variable text. It's just a piece of text here. And if I'm then doing variable text, I get all the different options that I can actually do. Capitalize means that the first D becomes capitalized, but I can really start to manipulate that piece of data. If this would have been a number, let's say 4, then the content is going to be different. Now I can do really other types of manipulations to this kind of data.
Understood.
By default within Python.
And the libraries you imported so far, the request and JSON, like physically they are already installed or located somewhere, or it is calling it from somewhere?
You have to install them, so you will also be doing that in the lab. So I chose to not to install and prepare everything for you guys. so that you see what is already by default installed and what not. So you
Okay.
have to install those first. To do that,
Yep.
that's actually pretty easy. You will use pip install, then you install the requests category. Yeah, where they stand. Requests. I get back to that. It doesn't install. I get back to that. It's gonna happen. It's gonna work better on the lab PC.
Okay.
Okay. Good question. Thanks. Always.
Thanks, Thomas.
So let me bring in one additional example. So this is just a fun way of interacting with some APIs. This is what I actually put up as Cisco is making it as easy for interacting with APIs, because this is then the Meraki API Developer Hub. And if you go to the APIs out there, you get actually to see all the APIs and test them straight out from the dashboard. If you log in, you can use your own API key, or you will use just a random API key that is made available. So if I'm going to get to an example endpoints, okay, this is the one that I want to have. API organizations. I want to get all the organizations that I have access to as an admin. I just run the API, and this is my nicely structured reply. So we recognize this sign. So this means that it's starting with a list, and then we have a dictionary with values and keys. So we can retrieve that information and use that somewhere. Now, this Meraki environment makes it very easy for us. So if you look at how this API looks like, we click on template and we use Python. We can also use Node.js or anything else. But with Python, we see how this has been built up. Instead of my URL, dad jokes, now I have this URL that I need to use to make this API call. So I do a get to that API call. There we go. And if I'm then going to read how my JSON data looks like, I get to see, yep, that is not going to work. Just result. Just want to see the result. There we go. This is what I get back. I get a dictionary back with you have errors, and the result is missing an API key. This is what you're going to see a lot, because with dad jokes, you don't need to log in anywhere or provide any credentials. There are different ways of building in credentials so that you make sure that the data is safe and it's really you, because I don't want anyone else to have access to my organizations. So it needs to be secured in a way. I need to retrieve the API key. We will be learning that of course, in the Meraki API lab, how to do that. But then you retrieve your API key and you give that with your code as a variable in the request. And this is then the payload and the headers. This is what you will be building up. So payload is the data you'll be sending together with it. I will send no data with it because I just want to retrieve all of the content. And in the headers of the request, I will send my API key. I have to create payload and the headers before I will make my API key, because the code will be read from top to bottom. So the payload will be created. The headers contains now my API key, and now I will make my request together with my headers, and the data is going to be empty. So my payload is nothing, but I just sent none back so that there's no content that's been sent. I will run my request, and I get again this nicely structured, now in JSON format, information back. Now this is a list with all my organizations. Now I will do some normal Python coding that you will be learning in the lab itself. I will run through this entire list of data. So for the specific and first for a variable for every variable in my list. So this is my response.json. This is my list. Every variable in my list, I want to print that variable, which contains then a dictionary, and I want to show the value next to name. Good. So I'll do that. I'll just print for every entity in the list, I'll print out the name. So let's do that. There we go. Okay, we still have print results. I'm going to comment that out so it's not going to be used. So now I just get a proper list of all that data in here. Now I created an API call to my Meraki network. Now I can actually connect that Meraki network to another network using APIs. I'm not going to build that now in front of your eyes. I just did that before the call. This is an API call that I will be doing, but then to my Meraki bot, my WebEx bot that I just created. So I'm going to read the data. Let me see. Results. Okay, it's going to be sent. It's going to send results. Okay, check on that. No. Let me see if that one works. Result is test. Let's see if I can actually send test into my Meraki bot. No, it's not posting that information into my Meraki network. Well, anyways, let's let me look into that when you're going through the lab. Then I can show you this example, how you can actually connect to multiple instances and combine these all together with a piece of code. So the intent of this lab, and so by the end of this course, you'll be able to read out the information and manipulate that before sending that. So that's actually a little demo on what you'll be achieving by following this session. Asman, another question?
Well, if you wanted to create a dashboard, then you make a call to various in the dashboard that you want to create for a visibility purpose. Is that's one of the tasks you could do. Like you have automation, but then for visibility, create a report or create a dashboard. Then you create make several API calls to each and every product you need to get information from, just in a row like this after each other, or how do you do that?
Yes. So if you, let's say, if you want to see the status of all your switches in the network.
Yes. Or say differently. Say switches, routers, APs, per product line like that.
Yeah. Then you make an API call to, so there's one call that you can make, which retrieves all devices from an organization or all devices from the network, so that you can still decide. Then you, if let's say if it's for the entire organization, then you get, then you can build a widget which contains network A, and then you see the devices in there, structured from switch, AP, MX. You get that information back, and there is a key value in there in the reply for each device, which is a device type, or the device type even on the level of if it's an MS220 or if it's an MS120. You can even make a difference on that level. But that's all information that you get back from the reply. So if you take a look at the Meraki dashboard, if you want to read, get all of devices from.
Okay. And this is because this is a Meraki library.
This is a Meraki library. Yeah. So this is so before you can do such sort of things, you need, so as we've discussed initially, you need a device that is capable of understanding APIs, and you need a proper library that you can use. So
then you need a different library to handle Classic.
there is no, well, yeah, what do you mean with Classic? Yeah, with Classic, with Catalyst. Yes, yeah. So there is a different library for Catalyst. It's not going to be the exact same way to interact with the Meraki as with the Catalyst. That's why these libraries are so important. So I can always go back and then see how they look like. So this one retrieves all the devices from an organization. And within that reply, you can see the type of a device, the state of the device. And then you can, even with another call, you can check on all the ports if it was a switch. And you can even also retrieve that information and put that also in a dashboard that you create. This is not so complex. With just a few calls, you get that information and you show that in a way you like. So this is just a quick demo. Hopefully it now makes a little bit sense why. Firstly, we need to know how an API call looks like, an API looks like. We need to know Python to manipulate the reply, and we need to know how JSON can be used. So JSON is an important aspect here because the reply from Cisco devices is usually in JSON format. This is not the only format you will get replies from. There is also replies in the form of XML, for example. Then you need to analyze XML and then convert that in usable data, which is a different way of doing it. And you need to import a different library. So it really depends on what the reply is and how you can manipulate that data. I prefer JSON. Let's jump back to the slides here. So that is why we're going to focus on Python.
Thomas, as a prerequisite, like any fundamentals or training we should take on Python before pursuing for this lab, or it will cover some basics also?
These are the basics from Python. I didn't completely understand. Can you say that again? It's a bit of noise.
So, I mean, is there any prior knowledge in Python required in order to do this labs, or?
No, not at all. So you will be learning all the basics from Python in this lab.
Okay.
And the end of the lab is you will have created an API call and used Python to manipulate that data.
Okay. And are we covering any automation task? Like maybe we can run something in a loop that will constantly, let's say, updating Wi-Fi password for after 30 days, this kind of scenarios, or automate some task. Are we covering some similar thing here in the lab?
Similar in the way of you will get to know loops. You will get to learn how loops work, and then it is your own creativity. So you just have an existing API, loop something on it, and then you will get the reply out.
So basically, in the from the end user perspective, like if they want to run these automated workflows, they will constantly run these scripts in their servers, and that will keep running, right?
Yes, yeah, you can keep them running. There is even a Flask library, for example, a Flask library. That one keeps your script running, also like a web server. And then you can actually make requests. This is what I'm also doing to build out, for example, bots. Because what I have, this dad joke is something that I also build in, for example, in our bot right here. So you type in "Hey Dad," that's a trigger that runs the API call and sends you back that specific reply.
Okay.
So, but that's just a side thing. In the second course, you will be learning how to build such a bot, and then you start to interact with your network.
Okay.
In this bot. But first, we need to know how Python itself works.
Thanks, Thomas.
So I'm going very quickly over these sections. It's going to be much more clear when you do it yourself. The lab guide itself also has all the explanations that I'm showing you in the slides. So it's not, it's really double what you see here, you'll also get into that document. Firstly, and this is actually a best practice kind of thing. So firstly, you need to create a virtual environment. You will do that also in your lab. The reason is why it is because we, like you see here, we are importing libraries. We can only import libraries that we have installed on our computer. Now, if you're a developer and you're installing all these libraries on your computer, and then all of a sudden you're developing another piece of code, they will also be using those libraries. So we don't want that. We really want to create a virtual environment that we can activate and deactivate or delete if we are done with it. Because if you're otherwise you have to delete everything. You can't really delete it project per project. So virtual environments is always a good way to start. So let me just jump into an environment. So this is a little demonstration I will do to show you how these environments work. This one, no, let me just create it here. Oh, there's already one called Python. No, create a new one. This is then a folder where I will store my scripts. So this is my lab environment. So here I will create, now I'll create a very easy text document, which is hello.python. Hello.python. I can open that up using a text editor. Now I prefer Visual Studio, and I also recommend you to install Visual Studio Code because it's a very easy way of interacting with code. So I can now just do what I did before, print hello. Now this is an easy script that I created that is just going to show hello. So if I'm going to go into the console, you will learn that also in the lab, so don't worry. Git bash, there we go. Then I can run this Python code hello, and it shows me as a reply hello. So this is actually what we have been seeing in the demonstration before. It's pretty easy, very simple. Now this is using, if I'm now in this hello, I'm importing libraries. I want to install these libraries in my own virtual environment. So now I need to create a virtual environment first. So Python, I'm using the mod, where's my M? Here, the mod VNV. So this creates a virtual environment with a name you can decide. This is my first project. Now it creates a virtual environment, first project. Now you see that there is another folder automatically created here, first project. Everything that I'm installing now will be installed in this first project. Now it's created. Now I have to activate that. So I have to link to a specific source, which is my first project. So first project, scripts, activate. So now it's active. If I now run Python hello, it will use all the content within first project. So now I create a virtual environment. If I do now pip install requests, I'm installing this entire library in first project. So if I'm now importing requests to make an API call, I can do that in first project. If I'm doing deactivate, then now it doesn't work anymore because I'm not leveraging the content in first project. So this is how you create a separate virtual environment to do developing. Now, this is the first step you'll be doing in the lab, create your own virtual environment first before doing any coding. So that's why the first slide is also highlighting that. So, virtual environment.
Thomas, this Virtual Studio, we can say it's similar to PyCharm. I mean, it's an interpreter, right? The Visual Studio is an interpreter for the Python, right? Yeah.
That's exactly true. So an interpreter within Python coding program, what you select as an interpreter is your virtual environment. So either you use the global interpreter, then it's whatever's installed on the PC, or you go for a specific interpreter, which is then a virtual environment. Correct.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? Let's start with that first. To get everyone started, create your whatever I did now. So create that first. So create your first, connect to your test PC, obviously, or install Python locally. We can also do that. I think it makes sense that we do that as well in this lab. Normally, if you do this training to partners, they will just use the lab devices. It's all pre-installed, so it makes it easy. I think for us, it's also useful if we have this locally running on our system. So if you like, then we can install Python and we can install Visual Studio Code. That's what actually you will need to start working. And we will install Git, so you can create your virtual environments using Git. So, and then you will create your first code here, which is just an hello script and prints it out. That's it. So that's your first step. And then we will dive into the specific Python syntaxes. But first, let's get started.
And the presentation itself, where do I find that?
Am I still sharing anything, by the way? Oh no, I'm not. Damn. Have you seen actually the end? What have you missed?
No. No, I just wanted to have the presentation so I can flick through it myself.
Yeah, of course. But I just saw that it's not the screen sharing was not on. Have you actually seen?
Yeah. It was on. No problem.
Okay, that's weird. Then it's off by the end. Okay, no worries. Okay, good. Yes, the presentation is already shared in our shared folder. So we have our labs in here. So this is the DevOps track, the Meraki track.
In the Get comes to lab, okay.
In here, you will see the presentation and the lab guide. So open up the lab guide and then start working on it. Yeah, for you guys, I think it might make sense to install Python and install everything else. Would that make sense? Would you like to have that on your system, or do you think, okay, I'll just use the virtual stations for now? It's up to you, really. If you want to do that at a later moment, then you can do that as well. Really up to you.
In case of making our own studio or virtual environment, all these tasks, softwares are mentioned, right? What we need to install and what libraries we need to. All these details are mentioned in the lab guide, right?
Yeah. So you will not need any libraries at first. You just need to install Python. You need to. Shall we then maybe collectively do that? Then everyone has the necessary tools in their own system. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Thomas, I missed that. Yeah,
it's actually two ways we can go. Either we install all the tools collectively on our systems right now, then everyone has it, or you just dive into the lab and just go through the lab first, and then afterwards do that installation on your system, and then maybe run again on your own PC. Maybe let's do the lab first, because then if you're playing around and you are changing things you're not sure about, it's not a problem if you do that on a virtual on your own lab. So let's do a lab first now, and then after that we can install all the necessary tools on your own system to do this yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Thomas.
Okay, so you're using the pods now. Is that the case? Yeah. That's what we're saying.
Yes. Yeah. So everyone take a station number and log in and do the first section of the lab guide, which is creating a virtual environment and creating your first Python script.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with me. So I grab number 6 then.
Yeah. There's a different order here in my list. Yeah, Andreas, you get number 6. You were the first actually to say something, so you get 6. Great. Yours, you have 6.
Thomas, do you have the link here? Because I'm not on my work computer, so I don't have it here.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I will share the lab guide then also in there.
So I also don't have access to share folders here.
Okay, then I'll create let's see if I can create a public link with OneDrive. I don't have to do that. I can post it in WebEx Teams. So. Okay, it's uploading. Great.
Hi, Thomas. I had to work with a case here, so I have to end it, unfortunately. But I will come back to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will also stop the recording. I think I think this initial section was the most important. The rest is just going through some examples of Python. So maybe I don't need to record those steps. So let's see if I can stop.